What's going on, everyone? This is Zach, and today we are going to talk about Regulation H, which we used to call Reg A++. I'm here with Herald HD, who has basically been playing Reg A++ with me since the beginning, and he has been very good at it, and he was very excited to hear about Regulation H. Herald, say what's up.
Yo, what's up? What should I say? Moin Leute, Harry wieder am Start. Dude, I'm so excited to be here. Man, I absolutely love this format. Dude, it's so cool.
Yeah,
I mean, dude, I've played this since like November, right?
yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
looked it up. Our first one on Limitless was like November 11th, I think. So like
Whoa.
I made the joke on Twitter that like it was almost a full like pregnancy period. Like the average pregnancy is like 280 days, and so
Yeah.
like our first Reg A plus plus was 263 days. And I was like, can I call Reg H my son? Like, is this my child?
Yeah, dude.
And it's really the Discord's child. It's our child. It's a community child. But
Let's go.
Herald has been grinding out the
Look at our
ladder,
boy.
and he's been number one, and he's been in the top 10 a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
So we are going to talk about mons that we think are underrated today, and then we're also going to talk about some archetypes that we think are good. And then I've also made a list of other like different kinds of role mons if you have problems figuring them out. They're pretty like self-explanatory though, like with the exception of like a few, but let's talk about like the underrated mons. So, who is your first pick?
Let's go. So I actually made like a little bit of a tier list for this. And there are like two categories I want to talk about. So basically, the first category of underrated Pokemon is the category of Pokemon that I think we are gonna see a lot. And then we are gonna see Pokemon that are gonna stay niche, but are also really good. And my first pick is already gonna be really controversial, I think. I think my first pick is actually like a pair of Pokemon, and that's Dondozo Tatsugiri.
Dondo
I know, it sounds crazy.
Dondozo Tatsugiris
It's
and
like,
our duos and
yeah,
archetype list.
because yeah, for sure. I think this is gonna be so underrated, both as like a Pokemon and also as an archetype. And now I do have pretty good reasoning for this. Now the issue is with Dondozo Tatsugiri, it's very difficult to counter, right? I mean, I'm sure we're gonna talk about this later, how like Haze Mercury, for example, can beat it, and how you can put text on your team like Scorpions, Hydreigon, like Spore, Amoonguss, and things like this. But the thing about these kind of things is it can be really difficult to position yourself. For example, I've been using Murkrow a lot, right? I mean, I've played like 150 battles or something and like a couple of showdown tours as well. And even though I do have like the perfect counter, I still end up losing to Dondozo Tatsugiri a bunch because oftentimes what people do with Dondozo Tatsugiri is basically they lead something that really threatens the thing that you can use to beat Dondozo Tatsugiri, and then they just kill it and then just sweep the game, right? Which is
Yes.
really scary. On top of that, I've been really thinking about, the original Regulation A or Series 1. And there was a time where Dondozo Tatsugiri actually had like 70% usage, however, only on high ladder, which is really interesting. And I'm already starting to see a similar pattern for Regulation H. I think all of the Dondozo Tatsugiri players that I've been fighting were on the high ladder. For example, there was this one team which also got my second underrated Pokemon, which was actually Weezing Slacking and then Dondozo Tatsugiri. I faced this team and it turns out that player actually was rank 1, which is just so crazy. And what I really liked about their team was the Weezing Slacking. It's just like it can just one shot pretty much all the counters to Dondozo Tatsugiri, right? Like I had a Murkrow and it would like in one game we played, it just got one shot by Double Edge.
Yeah.
And also, if you have something like Among Us, it just gets one shot by Terra Normal Double Edge, right? Like it just beats the counters, and then you can just, lead, for example, using Slacking, and then just beat the counters, go to Dondozo Tatsugiri, and you can also pivot a lot, which is one thing that we haven't really seen with Weezing.
Yeah,
What do you
because
think
because
about
you
this, Zach?
because you only need like with like when we saw Wheezing with Regigigas, you needed Wheezing on the field the whole time because the ability lasts for 5 turns. With Slacking, like you only need it every other one. So you can go to turn 1 without your Wheezing because your Slacking's at full power.
I think that's one thing that's one thing that's so interesting. Another thing that I really like about Wheezing Slacking, which is why I think even though it's gonna be niche, it's gonna be really good, are the stats on Slacking. I mean, look at these stats. I mean, it got like pretty much the highest attack in the game, right? Like 160 attack with double edge, tower normal. You one shot pretty much the entire format. Because think about it, you can like get intimidated. I mean, odds are you can also run like Terra Ghost, for example, so you can't get faked out. And it's just really difficult to try to get rid of Slacking. I mean, we saw using Slacking make top cut. I think you used it, right? In regulation
I did use it.
Plus as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I did use it.
Yeah, dude.
I used it.
I used it as well. I didn't do.
I used it Terra Ghost and Assault Vest, I believe. And so I had 4 moves on it. I don't know why I'm saying like why I'm saying I think. I can check right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went 3 and 3 at top 8. Yeah, Assault Vest, high horsepower, knockoff, body slam, and drain punch. So basically, like, I didn't want the double edge. I don't like recoil moves, which was probably my fault. This is probably something that like a mistake that I should have fixed. I should have went for the double edge, but like knockoff for those ghost types that want to switch in to avoid the double edge, to avoid the body slam. High horsepower to like hit like Incineroar really well because Incineroar tends to carry Will-O-Wisp in some of these formats. We've seen Incineroar in the Reg A++ and the now Reg H. I've seen Incineroar be more offensive now. Back to being more offensive, where in the single restricted format, it was more like supportive. Like the taunts, the Will-O-Wisp, the knockoff, the parting shot, the fake out. It was actually really weird. It was like, oh wow, like you still have Flare Blitz on your Incineroar, but now like every Incineroar in Reg H, it like has it.
Yeah, I feel like Incineroar is one of these Pokemon that people are gonna realize how good it actually is, because it was so many of the Pokemon. But that actually is a good point to go to my next Pokemon. I think that are gonna be rather common. It's actually like 3 different Pokemon that do a kind of similar thing. So for me, that's like Gudra, Hisui, Como, and Sinistcha. And the reason is, I feel like these crit me not sweepers with Iron Defense Body Press, or in Sinistcha's case, you can run Call Mind and Strength Step. I think these are gonna be really, really good as well. We've already seen a lot of successful Como teams. And I think people are also sleeping on Hisui and Gudra, because I think as the format progresses and it's gonna develop even more, it's obviously like a more balanced kind of playstyle will form. So Hisui and Gudra is actually really good with a big special defense as well. And I think so will be Sinistcha with Core Might and Strength Step.
Yeah.
Actually used like Sinistcha and Gudra on the same team back in Regulation F and got to top 10 as well, which was pretty good. And I think the reason why these setup sweepers, or like crit me not sweepers, as what I called in singles, are really good, because they're just gonna be able to tank everything and just sit on like entire teams, especially if they're playing too passive, right?
Especially with the Gudra being a steel type naturally, and then the Como preferring the steel typing, you are already immune to Clear Smog. So if your setup answer is that Clear Smog Amoonguss, like a lot of my teams, for example, my answer is Clear Smog Amoonguss usually. Like you're short of luck because all they have to do is tear steel in front of you. Or, like we said with the Dondozo Tetsugiri, like they just lead something that they know can take you out. And so I think that's what makes
Pokemon are gonna be so good.
That's what makes Dondozo Tetsugiri so good, is that like not leading it. Like having it in the back, that means your opponent, until they see until they see your third Mon, they have to play under the pretense that you have Dondozo Tetsugiri in the back. So it then turns into I need to be defensive. And like being defensive is good, but if you're too defensive, it allows your opponent to capitalize off of that. And that's where something like, like the Wheezing and Slacking come in. Like, oh, you have to protect your Amoonguss. Like you have to protect your Amoonguss, you have to protect your Murkrow. So you're like if you lead them, you're gonna switch. Like, and if you switch, like you're gonna be in trouble. But I think the Terraghost is really good
For
on
sure.
Slacking.
Yeah. Especially in like a closed team sheet best of one format, you can just catch people off guard.
Yeah,
It's just
I don't know if the
it's just so
Assault Vest is
difficult
the
to get rid of.
best.
I feel like Life Orb Double Edge could be really good
Yeah.
because you just one shot so many things, right?
Yeah, if you're not
I feel
going
like that's
Terra
just
normal, you
so
have to
incredible
go.
because yeah.
And I think Drain Punch is like good utility because like you do have that high power, like and you get
Mm.
recovery. So anytime that you can get recovery on Slacking, like you're just putting
Oh
yourself
yeah.
in a really good position.
Exactly. You could also give it Sucker Punch as well, by the way. Like that's one thing I didn't do in the tournament. I really regret because oftentimes lacking will get outspent because it's quote unquote only base 100, right? But if you can just get like one Sucker Punch off before going down, that can actually be kind of clutch, I think. But knockoff is so good as well, especially if you want like a Weezing Toad School team, for example. You can just knock off to get rid of safety goggles, right? Knock off to get rid of citrus berries as well. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be really good. But yeah.
And then Wheezing is just like just
Should I
straight
talk about the
utility.
next Pokemon?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So for the next Pokemon, I actually got something that can kind of help to deal with slacking, maybe. It's also two Pokemon that are like a bit of personal for me. It's Sneasler and Basculegion, because these are like two Pokemon that I've been using a lot and also that I've seen a surprising amount of usage, even on high ladder as well. So I put them into the same category because they're like really strong and fast physical attackers, right? And now you're gonna think Basque Legion fast? Yeah. I think the best set for Basque Legion is actually a Choice Scarf Last Respect set. Because with a Choice Scarf and Adamant, Nature, and Max Speed, you're actually gonna be able to outspeed these Pokemon, you know, like Weezing and Slacking, and with Unburdened Sneasler as well. If you give this guy like a Psychic Seed, you only need to run like 12 speed to outspeed pretty much the entire format. And these Pokemon, I'm telling you guys, these Pokemon have been carrying me so much, and other people as well. Because Palafin's balance kind of fell off, right? And also Psy Spam kind of fell off. I actually don't really think it did, but we're gonna talk about this later. And these Pokemon are actually so good on this, right? Because I think the best way to run Sneasler is definitely next to Indeedee, because that allows you to go for sword dances very freely. And yeah, Sneasler just got potential to deal with a lot of these Pokemon that usually are really good on certain archetypes, right? For example, it can deal with a Slacking, with Close Combat, well, or Froacha if it's Terra Ghost, or Diaclaw if it's Terra Fairy, right? It can deal with Archludon on these rain teams with Close Combat, well, or Diaclaw if it's Terra Fairy, for example, right? So I think that's really a good breaker. And then Basque Legion is pretty much like Palafin, but also not really because they got the secondary Ghost Step with Last Respects, which can do so much damage. Oh my god! Like if Basque Legion is the last one alive, you will not you will not take a Last Respects, right?
I've
So the
been
sect I've
I've
been
been
running,
swept a
yeah,
lot.
the Choice Scarf set. Mm. Oh yeah, and it's just so good because with my team, what I've been trying to do is basically set up like a 1v1 scenario, right? With Basculism, and that is just it's just incredible, right? I think these two are also Pokemon that you're gonna see pick up in usage over time. And then for the last two Pokemon that I think are gonna pick up usage over time, that are like really underrated, is Primarina and Volcarona. We have already seen them do well. And I think the main reason for Primarina is that Urshifu now is gone, right? And Primarina can do, well, it cannot do what Urshifu does, but it can definitely fill up the Fire Water Grass core similar to Basque Legion. And it can do so many things. It can click Core Mine, for example, with leftovers, be really bulky. It can click Haze to absolutely destroy Dondozo. It can even run like Throat Spray sets in order to clean or just soften up the opponent. And I think Volcarona is one of these Pokemon. I think we saw it see usage when Dynamax was banned back in season 10. And this is another Pokemon that I've also used in Regulation A as well. Unfortunately, my Wi Fi kind of died, but what I ran is like a Quiver Dance set. Because that's actually so difficult to get rid of because you can wall so many of the special attackers. You can wall Golden Go, you can actually wall Ursula Blood Moon. You can just Quiver Dance. But what you also can do is you can run a supportive set. Similar to Primarina, you can both run offensive and supportive as well. And you can run Tailwind, Struggle Bug,
I
and
forget that Volk gets
Rage
Tailwind.
Powder. I know, right? Like, it's so crazy. Yeah, what do you think about these Pokemon? I think these are gonna spike in usage for sure.
I do as well. I feel like you definitely need the Terragrass on Primarina. I do like it when Primarina doesn't carry the Energy Ball though, because like one mon that I've really been liking is the Gastrodon, because it puts on a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of pressure just by existing. I do the
Yeah.
I've been doing Terrafire, and then no Protect, just Earth Power, Muddy Water, and like Ice Beam. So like calling it on a good switch, and then I've been like just tacking on Yawn. So like if you want to like try to like switch in if you want to try to switch in something to like not take take the spore, like say like it's something with like safety goggles or a grass type, like I can get like a Yawn in on it. And if you can predict the Rillaboom switch in and get a Yawn, like you're in a pretty good position. And people tend to tunnel vision on it because it is so good by just existing on the field. Like can you imagine if you've already like choice scarf locked into your wave crash, and I like switch in.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately I don't have to imagine.
and
That happened to me, and I don't feel good about it.
and Ice Beam does so much to the dragons in the format. Like, so you've heard a lot of people talk about like the double dragons, Garchomp, Hydreigon. Most of them are going to Terra in front of Gastrodon because they know that it's usually carrying Ice Beam. But like, you have Muddy Water to lower accuracy. You have Yawn for support, and then you have like Ice Beam. I can basically, like, you are with like maybe like 4 points of investment. Like, you are like one-shotting some Garchomps. Now, good Garchomp's probably not.
That's insane.
But like with Ice Beam, like if they don't Terra,
yeah.
So that's always been like solid going against the Garchomp.
Doing 90, that's good.
Yeah, doing 90 like right off the rip, especially if it's one of those things where it's like on lead and you're like, oh well, I have a Garchomp, so like I'm not super worried about it. So it's like, no, you should be like.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think I should definitely add Gastrodon to my list. This is one of the Pokemon I was talking about, like back in the Reg A++ days, where I wanted to use maybe. Because another thing that you haven't really talked about is it completely beats Golden Go as well. I mean, obviously you have to watch out against like an Amogus next to the Golden Go, for example, but it's one of a few Pokemon that actually resists Make It Rain and has a good special defense. So that's another really big plus, I think.
Now
and also, if you talk about like Tita Excadrill, for example, it just walls both of them as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, it supports Titar Excadrill really well, but it also handles them really well because it can take a lot of their moves. Like even from like Terra Flying, it's gonna do like a decent amount. It's gonna take it pretty well. So like what I've been doing is like the Citrus Berry and just like good solid recovery. Like I know if I would think about leftovers if I had Protect, but I feel like the Yawn is sometimes will allow me to bait the Gastron into like putting them in a certain position. Because when you see the Gastron in the field, you're gonna show your grass type. You're gonna show me your grass type. So and in like in a closed team sheet kind of environment, like people tend to tunnel vision on it, especially if they lead with their grass type. Like if you lead with your Rillaboom, I know I don't have anything to worry about because I know that you're gonna try to click Grassy Glide into it turn 1. So it's just like I just have to like Ice Beam or Yawn you or do what I want to do with Gastrodon.
That's so good, for sure. Alright, I think it's time to go for what Pokemon you're all here for. So my last
So these are the archetypes, these are the duos and the archetypes that you think are good, but you don't think people are gonna see. Right?
Yeah. I do think we're gonna see lots of Dozo Tatsugiri, but I do want to talk about one last thing that I do think we're not gonna see a lot of, and that is Grumpig / Sinistra / Orangu. I know Sinistra is here twice, but I feel like these are the best counters to indeed the Armor Rouge, right? Grumpig is probably a Pokemon lots of you guys are here for. And I think these are, yeah, these Pokemon are so good into Psy-Spam, right? Also in DD as well. Like I've been running in a prison Hyper Voice in DD, which is really good. You can do the same with Orangu. But like, first of all, let's talk about Grumpig, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Like a while ago in Regulation A++, I actually won one of the really old tournaments. It was only like 5 players, but I used the Grumpig team with Expanding Force, Snarl, and Prison Trick Room in order to absolutely stomp on these Psy-Stand teams, right? Because obviously Grumpig has a thick fat ability, which basically gives it a resistance to the fire type moves that Psy-Spam wants to throw off. But then also you already resist Expanding Force. And what I did is I went Terra Dark with Snarl, which was inspired by like a team that one really good player used to build back in the day. But I think nowadays you can also go for different sets. For example, I think Mental Herb could be really good. I think Terra Ghost could be really good in order to beat Final Gambit Annihilate. Yeah, but I definitely think like Grumpig is so slept on because what I've been doing to beat in DD Armor is basically just imprison Trick Room with like a Terra Ghost Pokemon. And that is just incredible. And Grumpig is one of the best Pokemon to do it because of its good natural bulk. And it also beats Pokemon like Galate, that are usually there to beat these Pokemon. And also, Sinistcha can do the same thing, right? I mean, you can run like Terra Dark Sinistcha, for example. You're already a Ghost type, so you don't need to run Terra Ghost. And you can also run Heat Proof as well, which a lot of people forget about, because if you lead Sinistcha, you're not gonna need Force Vitality, right? So you can go like Imprison Trick Room Sinistcha, or you can just go for like a late game Trick Room Sinistcha as well. And for Oranguru, like Oranguru is just so bulky already, and it got a built-in fake out immunity. You really, I mean, you really don't need to invest that much into like the stats, right? Because it's already so bulky.
What did
And
you
one
say?
thing that I
Hyper
really like about
voice,
it is
imprison trick
like
room.
Hyper Voice, Imprison, yeah, and then Instruct as well. Because what Instruct allows you to do is, for example, you can go Ursaluna Blood Moon, for example, and if you have something like a Taunt Pokemon, right? You can just Hyper Voice and Instruct, for example, because I like to run Mental Up on the Ranguru, and then even if they, so that way it allows you to not be forced to quote unquote waste the turn clicking Imprison, right? Because obviously a lot of players are gonna expect you to click that Imprison in an open team sheet, for example, or they're also gonna expect you to do it like in a best of one letter as well, right? Because obviously if you have a Ranguru lead against like Indeedee Armor Rouge, like you're gonna want to click that trick room, right? Or prevent that trick room. So you can just click instruct and like hyper voice, for example, and just do so much damage. I mean, I actually got to like top 4 in like 2 different Reg H tours with a Oranguru. It's just so good, I think.
That's interesting.
Especially that instruct is so underrated, yeah. So yeah, these are the Pokemon that I think are gonna be really slept on. I think out of the Pokemon I mentioned, the most common ones are definitely gonna be Dondozo Tatsugiri, and then also Basculegion. And then over time, I think we're gonna see Primarina and Volcarona. Because these are the two, like, yeah, categories, I think. The ones we're not gonna see a lot of that are really good. For example, gonna be like Sneasler, Oranguru, Grumpig as well. And then the other ones, I do think we're gonna see them a lot. Because they do fit our target archetypes we're gonna talk about in a bit as well.
I think Primarina and Volcarona are like work more as like splashable mons because they can
Yeah.
they can fill the role that you want. Like if you're like, oh, I
Mm.
need a tailwind, like I need a tailwind something, but I need like a redirector as well. Like, and it's just like, oh, Volcarona's that thing. Like
Mm.
Struggle Bug to deal with the special attack, Flame Body to deal with like the physical attackers, and you could
Mm.
still run like the Quiver Dance if you wanted to. It'd probably be better just to run Heat Wave.
I think I saw like a Scarf Volcarona as well, which was really good. Like Terrafire Heatwave, like in the sun. Look at the special attacks at 135. I mean, that's so scary, right?
Yeah. And it's just like you don't need to do much with this mon. And I think the one good thing is like that like people think about it is people think you're going to click Quiver Dance turn one. Like people kind of ignore you. They're like, okay, I can either shut it down immediately or I can handle it. So if you just go offensive turn one, like you can catch a lot of opponents off guard. And I wouldn't believe you on the Grumpig
sure.
if you didn't destroy me. Just to let everyone know, I was running Blood Moon Ursaluna for Rigoraph. With like hyper voice. So he completely shut down the trick room, and then he Terror Dark snarled the crap out of my Blood Moon and for Rigoraph. And what were you running next to it?
Oh, dude, I remember the team. I was running Hisuian Zoroark and Sylveon and Low Kicks.
I think
And
it was the low kicks. I think you like
yeah. I think Low Kicks was able to take the Blood Moon on because of the Snarl, and I was just able to recover with Leech Life. And that's how I beat you, I think.
yeah, he wiped me with Grumpig.
Let's go.
But what do you think what do you think Grumpig's utility is outside of Psy Spam, dealing with Psy Spam?
Honestly, that's a really good question. I do think it definitely got a place in this format, even without Psy Spam, because Snarl is just so good, right? And
Yeah.
having a Pokemon with bulky click and Snarl can be really good because dealing with Pokemon like Golden Go, like Ursaluna Blood Moon is gonna be really difficult. And a lot of people forget about this 80 base speed as well. Like having like a Pokemon relatively fast, which is also with bulky and click Snarl, is really good. And I also do think just it can work as a bulky trick room setter as well, right? You can even bring it into matchup where you don't have spell spam. If you're going up against like a Tailwind team, for example, you can just click Trick Room and then you can just, just take the hits and just slowly roll them over, right? I think that's gonna be really good. Another set that maybe is a bit crazy is like a Core Mindset. But I do feel like the best Grumpig set is definitely the Imprisoned Trick Room set. Because the funny thing is, you don't have to run it on Psy Spam. I mean, when I used Grumpig, I had Expanding Force, but no Psychic Terrain myself, because it's literally there to beat Psy Spam, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Grumpig is definitely usable outside of beating Psy Spam and outside of your own Psy Spam as well. It's actually really good. You could also go for like Imprison Snarl and just make it so the opponent can Snarl, but I think that's way too specific. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited for this Pokemon for sure.
That's like when we first started Reg A plus plus and I got sick of facing so many Blood Moons. I ran an Imprison for Rigoraph with Imprison Hyper Voice, Trick Room, and what was the other one? There was another move that I tacked on for Rigoraph just to imprison it.
Maybe Terra Blast? No.
But like
Psychic?
it didn't work out as well because you're just basically like forcing the Blood Moon to click Blood Moon, and
Yeah.
it does so much damage.
I know. It's incredible.
But I think Oranguru is pretty good here in this role because Oranguru like honestly doesn't need to do much after Trick Room and Instruct. So giving it the Imprison and the Hyper Voice like puts it in a really good position. I've seen a lot of them like if they don't want to carry Imprison, for example, they can run something like Foul Play. So you don't even have to like use like your physical attack. And so that's really solid. But I think
one of
I think Imprison is like decent on it.
Yeah. I think the thing I like most about Urangu is the fact that even after you click Imprison, you don't just sit on the field and do nothing, right? Because oftentimes, if you're using an Imprison Pokemon and you clicked Imprison, you want it to stay on the field for as long as possible, so that way obviously the opponent can't trick room, right? But then you're just sitting there doing nothing. But the Rango can get around with really nice because of Instruct. And another thing that I really like is you can both use it on your own Trick Room team, but you can also use it against Trick Room, right? One set that I saw someone use is actually like Imprison Trick Room Protect Oranguble, because that allows you to stop the opponent from reversing the Trick Room, and you can also Imprison Protect in order to make it more difficult for the opponent to install the Trick Room as well, which is one more thing I could see Oranguble doing as well.
Ooh, yeah, that's nasty. Like I just like this because it also it shuts down like opposing blood moons, right?
Exactly.
Like it's just like, are you more worried? Like, is your blood moon matchup bad? Like, try this one. Like, is
Exactly.
your side spam matchup bad? Like, try try Grumpig. Like,
Let's go.
um,
Graphic to the top,
and
baby.
one thing we were talking about when we were talking about trick room setters, um,
hmm
was actually Malamar, and I think Malamar might
Let's
be like a
go.
sleeper on these setup mons because of Topsy Turvy. It has been a while since we've seen Topsy Turvy get used because it wasn't. I don't feel like it was as important in Dynamax because
Mm,
boost just came and like went so quickly with like max airstream and then max quake, or if like
mm,
someone used max phantasm to drop your defense or something like that. Like stats were so willy-nilly with Dynamax that like you didn't see it really use Topsy Turvy that much. It was more of a like a I click Trick Room and then like I start clicking my setup moves with the contrary ability. Um, you could also now with the contrary ability you could also run Terra Stellar Terror Blast.
Oh, Stella's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about this
So
actually.
you get a boost. You get a boost in right. You get a boost in attack and
Yeah,
special attack every time.
attack and special attack. Yeah, exactly.
And so
So if you
super
don't want to use superpower, you can use Terra Blast, which
yeah.
is really good.
And so the reason why we want to talk about like topsy turvy is because there are ways to avoid clear smog, as we talked about with like the Terra Steel with the Gudra and
Mm,
the Coma O setups. Um, topsy turvy is a dark type move, so it can hit
yeah.
anything, and it inverts the target stats. So it's definitely something that needs to be like well positioned. But like
Mm,
we were talking about it before we started recording, and just imagine clicking topsy turvy on a Dondozo. Like
dude,
it's one
like,
thing hitting it with the clear smog, but hitting it with
okay,
the topsy turvy.
dude, that would be so amazing. I cannot imagine how that would feel, man.
And I would have to say like after the topsy turvy, like you can probably just like just switch in whatever you want.
Exactly, and you can take advantage of Dondozo like relatively easy, right? For example, if you have like a setup Pokemon, you can just set up like -2 Dondozo cannot switch out, right? Like I know usually setting up in front of Dondozo isn't the play because it's most likely it's gonna be unaware. But I mean, you already trapped in the Dondozo and got it at -2. Like, what is it gonna do, right? But I'm so excited for Melimar personally. I remember back in the day in Sword and Shield, it didn't really see much usage except for in Series 10 where Dynamax was banned. It was actually really good. Like my homie Randstreifen zu Hacker or like Bürgergeldempfänger as he's known on Discord used to build a team with Melimar and Lurantis actually, which was just so good because what we used was like an expert build, so that their superpower can always knock out Incineroar after an Intimidate boost, and then you could set up Trick Room. But now it actually got so much better because I feel like Topsy Turvy is really good now. You can use Terra as well to get rid of a quote unquote bad typing. And you can, like with Terra Stella, for example, I didn't even think about this. You don't need the expert build to kill Incineroar, and you can run something like Forward Cloak as well, which is just so good.
You
And another thing that I thought about you could do is actually like fake tears kind of stuff, right? Because we have seen it on Superior a bit, which is just so cool as well. Because Melamar is not that bad, guys. Trust me.
fake tears, scary face, um, like a bunch of stuff. Yeah. I would have to say the only downside to the Terra Seller is that you keep your typing when it comes to like
Yeah.
weaknesses. So like I remember when we started out Reg B and like the Paradox Pokemon came in and everyone's like, "Oh, Brute Bonnet, Brute Bonnet, Brute Bonnet." Like, and I was just like, you can just U-turn with your Meowscarada and it dies. You can U-turn with anything. Like Malamar is the same way. Like you get hit by any form of U-turn and you're probably dying. Like
Hmm. Yeah, it's probably best to run like a Terra fighting maybe, but I do feel like there has to be a bit more testing done because I feel like when the format settles down a bit and we're gonna see more, Incineroar, Willaboom, things like this, eventually we're gonna find out a good Terra type for it.
yeah.
Like another thing I could see is like Terra Grass, for example, to beat like Amoonguss. You're still gonna be weak to U-turn, or maybe you could run, I don't know, like Terra
But you're
fighting to
but you're
actually
not
get a
four
one shot
times
on
weak.
Incineroar.
You're not 4 times weak
Yeah,
though.
exactly. I mean, U-turn isn't that strong of a move either, right? So it's fine.
But Malamar could be like, what could you run it with?
That's a good question. I've seen a Malamar team that has been doing really well, where it's like a Pelifin balance team, but then it also got Komo and like a Malamar on there. It's really interesting. That's definitely something you can run it with. But I think one of the best ways to use it is actually with a Trick Room set. So I think you could run it on Psy Spam, for example. Maybe like Psycho Cut, Superpower, Knockoff, but when you don't have Topsy Turvy. Something like this. Dude, but honestly, that's a really good question. I definitely have to go to the kitchen at some point and build something with Malamar.
It's so hard to
Hmm.
justify like running it as like if you want to try to like run like expanding force. It's just you get so much benefit off of running superpower on a
Mm.
contrary Pokemon
Oh yeah.
that like Enamorus ran it like even though it was a special attacker. It's just like
Really? Dude, that's so crazy. What?
yeah, like
Don't even
oh,
remember this.
never mind. Like Enamorus is more of like a mix. Like there's a 20 point difference, but like it's like 115 attack and 135. So you would
I mean,
think
yeah, but still.
so. Like a lot of them like literally just ran like superpower and then like moonblast,
Hmm.
and you would just bulk up your defense and then start clicking like moonblast and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's definitely really good.
But no one ever used
But if
Enamorus,
it wasn't
so
for Flutterman, but
yeah.
yeah, makes sense.
I can't really think of any other mons that like we would be considered overrated. I feel like people do actually like respect
Mm.
the format and like the mons in it like really well.
Oh
Uh
yeah,
but like
for sure.
I do think last thing we'll talk about, what mons do you think are overrated? Like
Hmm.
dropping.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a good question. I did think about this a bit, but honestly, it's for me personally, I think it's so difficult to tell in like an early format because it's gonna sound crazy, but I think a lot of people don't really know what they're doing, right? For example, one thing I know you probably expect me to say is Pelifin, but
Yeah.
I actually think Pelifin is one of the best Pokemon in the format, but I think people are using it wrong, Because I think the best Pelifin teams are not the ones where, like, I don't know, one shots your whole team. I think the best Pelifin teams is the Pelifin team where you cannot hit Pelifin, for example, right? So I don't know if I feel comfortable calling out like bad Pokemon, honestly. But let me think.
I think
if I had to
people have to remember
name
that
one
Palafin
like
gets Drain
really bad
Punch.
Pokemon. Mm. Oh yeah,
Palafin gets Drain Punch and also gets
that
Haze.
could be really good as well. The Haze Pelifin is so good.
Let me try to.
Okay. I will say one Pokemon that I think is very overrated right now. And it's gonna sound crazy, but I think Earth Lunar Blood Moon might just be a bit overrated. Hear me out, okay? I think the
Hold
reason
on.
for this is that right now, Earth Lunar Blood Moon is like the number one thing to beat on every team, right?
Yeah.
So every team is gonna try to have switches to Earth Lunar Blood Moon, right? But I think over time people will start adapting to this. I mean, we have seen like Assault, West, Blood Moon, Ursaluna do really well. There was a team with dual screen Core Mind Ursaluna, but I lost a bunch too. You could also just run Trick Room Ursaluna, for example, which could be really good as well.
I faced one
But
that
I
had
think this
Moonblast.
might be one Pokemon that's currently overrated. Really? Moonblast? Nah.
Moonblast.
My Dragon is
Moonblast.
not beating this one.
Yeah, great to have
Reg
a
H is
flying
great.
great to have the Salamence. Like, and I was just like, oh, I was like, I'll be able to take like one like hyper voice. Like I'll be able to like
Yeah.
I'll switch in on Earth Power or whatever, and it's just like nope, Moonblast.
Mm, goodbye.
Yeah. Oh, it was
That's
life orb.
crazy.
I
Oh,
do
nah,
think
goodbye.
I wouldn't consider this overrated, but I would consider it like you have to know your
Mhm.
matchups. Like you have to know like you have to know what the Blood Moon answers are and how you're going to deal with
Yeah.
them. Like
Mm, exactly.
that's kind of like the Palafin balance, like the fire, water, grass, the Incin, Rillaboom, Palafin that everyone's worried about are
Mm,
like are Amoonguss if you're like that. Are we've seen a lot of people do both Rillaboom and Amoonguss, so like they have an answer for either way. Um,
mm.
you the scary thing about those matchups is that like you don't know how skilled that player is with their Palafin balance because
Yeah, I agree.
there's a big difference between playing someone who just knows what Palafin balance is and someone who has like fine-tuned their Palafin balance, like you know what I mean.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I do feel like it's similar for Ursula Blood Moon as well. Because, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just one of these Pokemon. Oh, dude, it's like, I don't, I keep thinking about this. I keep thinking about games where I got absolutely bodied by this Pokemon, right? Like, oh my god. Like I got like fucking PTSD all the time, it's crazy. This Pokemon it can do so well if you just get the right support for it. But I feel like so many people don't know how to use it. Like this one time, I literally just clicked close combat into it with my Sneasler and he just clicked per mind. I was so perplexed at what he was doing, right? But like no offense against that player, right? But I do feel like if you like actually know what you're doing, it's so difficult to get rid of Blood Moon. Because let's say you have like a Tailwind team, and then the opponent also got Tailwind, and for example, like I would run Mercury Dragon, for example, to beat the Blood Moon with Draco Meteor, but then it's Assault Vest and just clicks Moonblast, right? Or let's say you're using like a physical attacker like Sneasler to beat it, but when the opponent goes for Reflect or Terror Ghost, and you're just sitting there like,
Yeah.
Sneasler dies to Earth Power, obviously, right? I think it's like a really high skill cap Pokemon actually when it comes to both team building and battling as well. And I think it's the same for Palafin balance as well. You brought up a really good point there, because like another one of these factors is like even if you know your opponent is good, there are so many ways you can use Palafin balance, and it's the same for Ursula Blood Moon as well. Like you never know like what mode your opponent is gonna go for. In this like tournament I just recently played, I was going up against like a really cool Palafin team. I think it had Palafin, yeah, with Hisuian Decidueye and like no, actually it didn't have Palafin. It was like a rain team, and they just let Golden go and like click nasty plot twice because I didn't expect him to go Golden go, right. like like I just got gooped so hard, right. And it's the same for Asuna and Palafin as well. Like oftentimes these teams with these Pokemon have so many different playstyles. If you pick like the right game plan, you will just get an automatic win sometimes.
And there is like a decent amount of tech that like Palafin actually holds. Like this is something I utilize like early Reg A plus plus, like
Mm,
taunt, haze, like drain punch. Like there are moves that Palafin gets that like people don't expect on it. The haze is a little more expected, but not the taunt. Like
oh yeah.
if you're running taunt on your Palafin, like especially on lead where people are like, oh, they're just gonna switch out the Palafin. and they're gonna like try to like
Exactly.
hold it to the end game, and it's like, no, I'm gonna click taunt. Like,
Dude, I got so surprised with Pelefin's move pool. I actually played it in draft, and it was a focus slash Endeavor Pelefin. I was like, what?
oh my
It actually
goodness,
gets so many things. I know, right?
you just endeavor and then like jet punch.
Exactly. It's like a Rattata, but like on steroids.
But I think like I yeah, so these mons aren't overrated. It's just like
Yeah.
it's skill diff.
That's a really good way to put it. That's a really good way, yeah. Because I mean, yeah.
Like
It's just incredible what these Pokemon can do in the right hands.
if you're having a hard time playing against them, it's an issue in your team building, or it's a skill diff. If you are playing really well
Yeah.
with them, it is a skill diff. Like, and then we've also seen that like the only scary thing about like Blood Moon Ursaluna right now is that people have been really experimenting with like the hyper speed,
Mm,
because you know, hitting 104 with Tailwind, like that's not too bad, especially if they don't have their own Tailwind.
exactly. And you can also even sometimes get away with running timid. Dude, was one time I was going up in the Ursula Blood Moon mirror, and I was modest and they were timid, and they just terror normal and one shot me with Blood Moon, bro. It was so sad. And with a timid nature, you actually get. I think people read it in restricted formats to outspeed Cardiac Shadow Rider as well. But
I
I think one thing that's really crazy about the fast set is that you're still so bulky, right?
I
I
think
mean,
I think it was Swamp VGC who ran. He ran like I believe his was probably modest, but he just ran like
mhm.
he ran hyperspeed Blood Moon. Like
Yeah.
he ran like Life Orb, Terra Normal, like max speed, and then just ran it next to Talonflame
Oh yeah.
and just went Tailwind, Hyper Voice, boop.
With such a good core. I don't know who actually came up with this. We had this running around in Regulation A++ for a while. I think the biggest time was when TKL won with Talonflame and Blood Moon, which was I used his team. It was actually incredible, man. You literally just click Tailwind and Terra Normal with Blood Moon, and you're just one-shotting so many things. And the best thing about this is that Talonflame can just also one-shot so many things, right? It's incredible. Oh yeah, there it is.
There it
Like
is.
this team is so good, especially with a golden go as well. Oh my god.
Yeah, the choice specs, like yeah, the Life Orb, Mind's Eye, Terra Normal, like Blood Moon, Hyper Voice, like Earth Power, like, and then they still got their Fire, Water, Grass. Like, I think TKL like they really cooked with this because of the
Oh yeah.
Bruxish.
Mm.
Because with your Blood Moon, you want for Farigiraf. Like, you want to be able to stop priority, because there's like, if you don't tear and you stay a ground type, like Rillaboom is a threat. Like Palafin is a threat. Like, there are so many ways to threaten it. So like, just having the Bruxish, like, you get your Fire, Water, Grass core, and like Bruxish actually has like pretty decent attack for like this format,
Oh
right?
yeah. It's really good. I remember those
Yeah,
one-shotting
105.
things left and right when I tried out this team. It's actually incredible.
105 with like Psychic Fangs destroy screens. I
Oh yeah.
I would have to say that it's probably not hard to calc this to one shot Amoonguss.
Yeah, I mean you could run a different offensive item as well. I mean I do really like the focus sash for safety purposes, but like an offensive item could go hard as well. Another thing you could do with Bugfish maybe even is like Icy Wind or something. I mean that might be a bit crazy, but I do feel like Bruxish may also be a bit slept on. But I feel like as the format progresses, Bruxish will get progressively worse. Because I feel like as the format gets bulkier, there's gonna be less and less justification for using Bruxish. But in this early format, I think Bruxish is gonna go so hard potentially. I mean, we already saw it win this tour,
Yeah.
which I mean that's already really, really impressive, I think. But it's just so cool to see Pokemon like Bruxish pop off, man. I'm so hyped.
And that's I mean, that's why we started playing, cuz like if we look here, like,
Exactly.
I think this was my Gastrodon. We got Bruxish, we got
Oh yeah.
Orthworm, we got Swampert, we got Rabombi, Rabombi, I'm pretty sure won the
But
last one.
didn't get like a second? Oh, nice. Yeah,
Rabombi did get second.
so cool.
And then I think Rabombi won the last one. No.
Ah, unfortunate.
Fifth. But they've top cut twice with Rabombi.
Exactly. Like that's so cool.
Can I
And I mean,
tell you?
hmm?
I have
Okay.
a vendetta against this Rabombi.
Okay.
So
Oh, I remember.
I ran the Dondozo. I had the
Hmm.
end game set up, and I'm like, all right. I
Hmm.
was like, I just gotta like knock out the mons. I was like, I've taken care of
Hmm.
the. I think it was the mouse ape. I got rid of
Hmm.
whatever like their offensive mons were, and they were left with like
Hmm.
Meowscarada on like 10% health, and Rabombi at
Yeah.
like 80%. And I was Terra Grass to avoid like um
The flower trick.
flower trick and spore. So
Hmm.
their Rabombi crit pollen puffed me and O code my
Hmm.
Dondozo from like 80%.
Rip. I mean, I would say I feel bad, but you were using Dondozo, so I don't. But yeah, I feel for you.
That's literally what he said. He was like, I feel really bad, but that's what you get for running Dondozo.
I mean, good point he's making.
Uh,
I like it.
one thing that's really gonna be like tough with
Mm-hmm.
with Tetsugira and Dodonzo, how
Mm-hmm.
is Weezing's usage going to go? Because like yes, for like
Oh.
90% of the time that you use Tetsugiri, like uh,
Mm.
you're not using it, right? But
Yeah,
those
yeah,
few times, most of the time, they run Choice Scarf just to get the speed,
yeah.
just to like, hey, if it's the only Mon left, this is what I need to do. Like, I want to make sure that
Mm.
I'm hitting the best speed that I can. So like, max speed is that'd be close to 200 speed. So like, as
Whoa.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but how often are you going to risk that? Like if your main strat is Tatsugiri to Donzo, like how often are you going to say like, okay, like if Weezing's at this much usage, like I can't,
Mm.
I gotta go ability shield.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Because I remember, I think it was it the first ever Reg A plus plus tournament where I brought Weezing and I got like third or something. And then in the next tournament, like every Tatsugiri had ability shield. It was so funny.
Yeah,
Another thing that I think is really good about Dondozo Tatsugiri, like if you really know what counters it, you can go up against it really well. I mean, what I think is gonna be the best Dondozo Tatsugiri set, maybe a substitute, and then obviously ability shield on Tatsugiri. Because with substitute you can avoid spore and clear smog, and then with the Tatsugiri you will be able to avoid wheezing. And then obviously you still have to worry about opposing Dondozo Tatsugiri and all of these things, but if you just care about beating the counters to Dondozo and Tatsugiri, that could be really good, yeah, for sure. I really like the ability shield as well. It's just always cool to see like niche items being used, I think.
but like when does it come to the point like how high does Weezing's usage have to get for this to
Mm,
become the necessity and not the just in case?
yeah, that's a good question. I think it doesn't really depend on like the usage of Weezing, because I feel like if you are like playing in like an official tournament, for example, right?
Yeah.
You do not want to lose to Weezing, right? Because if you lose to one Weezing, you might just end up losing the whole tournament, right? So it might be worth it to just put on an ability shield just in case you fight a Weezing, right? I think that could be a really good reason to run ability shield on Tatsugiri. Another thing could be if you were playing like on the high ladder. I feel like Weezing is definitely one of his high skill cap Pokemon, similar to Palafin and Blood Moon Asuna that we talked about a bit, where it's probably gonna be more common on the high ladder than on the low ladder, right? So if you are specifically trying to build a team that can work on high ladder, like the usage stats don't really matter as much, right? Because
Yeah.
on the high ladder, if you are high enough on the ladder, right, you're gonna get like 10 points for winning on average and then 30 points for losing. So if you keep running into that one losing player who's actually using it and you keep losing, you're gonna you're gonna want to put in that ability shield, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we totally might not see ability shield Tatsugiri at all as well. That's gonna be really interesting to see.
I think it's gonna be the most common item at first.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Like,
Interesting.
well, no, because the way that people are gonna stop it is Murkrow, right? Haze Murkrow.
Yeah, probably.
Because it just covers so many other things, and like Murkrow does give like the utility of
Mm,
like Tailwind, and then like if you really want
yeah,
to, you can run Taunt. But on the Mons you really want to
yeah.
taunt, you can't because of Armor Tail, Psychic Terrain, all that stuff. Like,
Mm,
so you can't taunt them anyway.
yeah. Another thing I thought about that could also work really well with Tendozo Tatsugiri because it actually beats Murkrow is Pawmot. I mean, we have seen it get a ton of usage back in Regulation A, right? I feel like
Yeah,
that's another thing that we definitely need to talk about because Revival Blessing makes it so you can play the Dozo Tatsugiri so differently to how you would usually run it. And it's another one of these Pokemon that makes positioning your Murkrow so difficult, right? Because I do feel like Murkrow is still the best on Dozo Tatsugiri counter, and I do think it is an absolutely incredible Pokemon if you build the right team around it. But like Pawmot is just gonna be so annoying. I think what people ran was Natural Cure Best, Revival Blessing, and then like Double Shock, Fake Out, something like this, maybe even Protect. It was, dude, it was so good, man.
yeah.
Oh my god.
You run the double shock, and then you run Terra Electric. So if you like really need to, you just go Terra Electric, and
Mm,
you can always click double shock because you lose your electric type becomes typeless. But if you Terra Electric, like Terra Electric can't
mm,
become Terra typeless.
yeah.
So it's like one of those loopholes where like if you Terra Electric your Palmot, you can constantly, and that's something I totally forgot. I went against like two of them on ladder, and it
Oh, really?
was it was really obnoxious because each time I had the game like locked in, and they're like up,
Mm-hmm.
they like bulked it out, and they're like up revival blessings.
Oh, oh no, I hate to hear that stuff. Because I'm like the number one Donoso Tatsugiri hater, right? I don't want Donoso Tatsugiri to be good at all, but
So
format might just be the thing that pushes it over the edge, just like in Regulation A.
so one thing I went against with Palmot was Swords Dance Rillaboom, which I wiped out
Really?
in the first two turns. Like
Oh.
it clicked Swords
Mm-hmm.
Dance once, and I was like, all right. I was like, I'm targeting you, and I knocked it out, and it
Yeah.
like they had to just been running their Palmot like I don't know, like probably careful nature and just like they're like we're gonna
Okay.
go to the bump.
Mm-hmm.
They had to have been running it like that or something along those lines
Really?
because I
That's
I
interesting.
put so much into it and it just I couldn't knock it out.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
And then the second time I faced it um was with Garganackle, which
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, they just like revived the Garganackle and then clicked recover
oh
with
my
the
God.
Garganackle, and it was just like, all right, like this game's done.
GG. On to the next one, guys. That's crazy. Man, I feel like Palmot might lead to some really big brain strategies. I mean, I would say I cannot wait to see what people come up with, but I actually can. I don't want to see Palmot have success, honestly.
Well, if you
But
if you think about it, there's so much more setup now. Like, and we've talked about it with like
mm,
the Hisuian Gudra, like the Volcarona
mm,
Quiver Dance. Like Volcarona was always there, but like the
I
Como
mean,
and
yeah.
the like, can you imagine like your Como going down, like
Mm.
like reviving it with revival blessings, and then when it comes back in, you just switch into
Bro.
Sinistra, and you basically recover like
Oh my god.
all of the HP that like revival blessings didn't.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's actually another really smart thing. That's really cool. And I mean, another thing that you can always do is run next to Specs Golden Go as well. I mean, imagine going up against like a Specs Golden Go Palmot and then Tatsuguri Dondozo in the back. Like, how do you even beat this?
Palma Specs Golden Go. I can tell you what
Yeah.
Tailwind Earthquake, Tailwind Murkrow Earthquake Garchomp.
hmm I mean, yeah, if you want to lose to everything else in the format, you can definitely run this, yeah. No, but no, I see your point, of course, but oh my god, it's just a format. I don't know how to feel about it. Like, I, I don't know. I'm glad that Revival Blessing is on a bad Pokemon. I mean, imagine Incineroar got Revival Blessing, right? I mean, the game would be changed forever, obviously, right? But oh my god. Oh no, what are you doing? Stop it.
And then
My eyes.
do we go like fire type, or let's cut the video here. Oh my goodness, we've been talking for an hour. This is not a video. This is a
Oh shit.
podcast.
Yeah, that's what happens, man.
I think we're gonna leave it here. You can find Herald on his YouTube channel as well. We are
Let's go.
cooking up in the Discord channel, so you can join my Discord in the links down below. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. Also, if you made it this far in the video, I am sorry.
What
uh,
are you sorry about? So much information at once. Oh my god. What an incredible resource this channel is, isn't
um,
it?
but our next Reg A plus plus / Reg H tournament will be next Friday. Unfortunately, I know like it's kind of a bummer because I was like, yeah, we're the one tournament, and now like everyone's running Reg H because like all those like
Yeah,
most of those people aren't going to World, so they're like new format. So
let's
now
go.
we're not as special anymore, but like we were the first.
Hey, it's fun.
Um,
Yeah, we have the OGs.
but August 9th should be our next one.
Let's go. Make sure to join, guys. It's gonna be fire.
But let's figure out EVs for this team once I click stop recording.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be all.
Alright,
Like and subscribe, and
let's go.
we'll see everyone later.
Subscribe, guys. Haut rein.